Concho Valley, we have to talk about today. That was a pretty wild day of weather, seeing a lot of those thunderstorms push through, some on-off rain across the entire area, strong amounts of humidity, and then we're seeing a lot of these temperatures as those winds are already starting to turn out of the north, and we're still expecting more severe weather to push through by tonight, even though those warnings have already expired. Looking at the temperature change over the last 24 hours, we leveled out in those 60s and those 50s, jumped up 20 degrees up into those 70s. That's where we're dealing with a lot of those wind changes, and then we're back down into those 60s right now. Could drop another 10 degrees, kick off a few more thunderstorms across the entire southern part of the Concho Valley. Finally, their opportunity to see some rain. Right now, 62 in San Angelo. Everybody else in a combination of 60s and 50s, seeing how uneven it is with a lot of that rain pushing through to the north, especially 62 there in San Angelo. And then, of course, 61 down there in Ozona. They could see some rain. 68 in Junction. So we're still seeing a good about 7 degrees spread across the entire Concho Valley, but more in the horizontal west to east as opposed to the north to south, like we typically see with those drier conditions. But we do see a lot of that dry air off to the west, still coming down the Edwards Plateau, while those dew points are around the 40s and the 50s, while down to the south they're in those 60s, but nearing those higher saturation points. Again, good opportunity to see some thunderstorms push through the southern part of the Concho Valley and see good rain for them as well. So we're going to watch this low pressure really take its time. Keep your eye on that white dot. That's the highest wind speed, really going to pull through most of that severe weather, while we watch that ridging off over the Rocky Mountains. That could push us into the 80s by next week, but it is going to drop us down into the 60s with some windier conditions. We're going to watch that moisture wrap around and then finally push out with a lot of that dry air right behind it. That's where we're going to see some of those colder temperatures and those winds we're expecting out of the north, about 20 miles per hour. Looking at the severe weather outlook, still targeting us in the Concho Valley, parts of Oklahoma and East Texas, and where things are quieting down for now, but in the next couple minutes, if not a couple hours, could see it around Friday early morning. Right now, getting a good look at this mess, or at least what's left of it, as those clouds still pretty much making good time, but clearing out a little bit, and this could see quieter radar conditions, but really keeping our eye pointed right here near the Ozona region. As, of course, we're going to watch as these storms erupt early Friday morning around that 1-2 a.m. period. We're going to keep our eye on it. Then things kind of push out. Looks like we could do with some low clouds. You see those clearing in, those cooler temperatures. That's where those winds are really going to pick up tomorrow from the north. Then things finally push out by Saturday. A little bit of low cloud cover early in the morning. Then around that lunchtime hour, things are really pretty clear. Steven's going to get a better look because he really tackles that weekend as we see some of those clear conditions. Finally, winds are what we're really focused on, seeing them really build up Friday, and then things are going to start getting even more intense as Saturday rolls around, really pushing out of the north early in the morning. Then as Sunday rolls around, things are going to kind of quiet down, warm back up, lose that hour, but return back to normal, at least back into that quiet period where we could see what could lead to the next severe weather as we are looking at the next storm by next weekend. So again, dropping down into the 50s, still looking for some of that thunderstorm activity to the south early morning. Then things kind of clear out, get pretty windy, and then we're going to stay in the 70s. That's going to be the last warm day for a while as we start to see those temperatures drop down into those 60s again with those clearing clouds. Then we lose that hour on Sunday, but things warming back up. Then we start spring break and we're in those 70s. Then we're leveling out in those 80s. Then by the weekend, we are getting a good idea of those thunderstorms making their way in, while those lows are going from those 30s up to those 40s and then hanging out in those 50s. Stay tuned while we're after the break. You're watching KSAN News at 10.